Oh, hi there. Oh, like I didn't know you were there. Welcome back. Oh boy, it has been a long day, a nice one. I woke up kind of late and I went down to the strip, to Las Vegas Strip, and just spent the whole day walking around, people watching, drinking coffee, nibbling. It was nice. Nice direct contrast to yesterday's super stressful day of recurrent. Um, so I made that video yesterday about recurrent, and I said that I would film a video about what it's like to be on reserve and the differences between being on reserve and being on a line or getting a line. And one of the first thoughts I had before filming this was there's a children's book called Everybody Poops. I know you probably weren't expecting that. Everybody poops. Elephants poop, birds poop, insects poop. I wonder if single cell, like amoebas, do they poop? I don't know. If you know, drop a comment in the box below. Do single cell organisms poop? All right, so I thought that because if you're going to be a flight attendant, one of the facts of life, like everybody poops, is every flight attendant is going to be on reserve. Now, before becoming a flight attendant and getting my wings, before that, reserve was this sort of diaphanous concept. I kind of understood what reserve was going to be like. I kind of knew what to expect. But until you're on reserve, you really don't know. So reserve is just a constant sense of anticipation. Is crew scheduling going to call me? It's kind of like having a boyfriend who doesn't communicate very well. You're like, will he call me today? Is he not going to call? He didn't call me. Has he called me? And then when he calls you, it's a big surprise, right? So crew scheduling isn't trying to play with you. I don't think there's really ever a sense of malice or mischievous nature when they call. It may sound like it and feel like it, but crew scheduling will call you. You'll be on reserve for a certain number of days. Oftentimes, it's up to 6 days in a row. Crew scheduling will call you at a particular amount of time. Some airlines, not many, I hope, have 24-hour periods where the crew scheduling can call you. It's like a rolling reserve period, which sounds horrifying to me. My airline, we have 10 hours. It's a reserve notification period. You bid for it like you do for bidding on a line. I always bid for B, which is 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I knew that crew scheduling wasn't going to call me before 7 so I could sleep. And after 5, the rest of the day was mine to do with as I would. When you're on reserve, you want your phone on you at all times and charged, ready to go. When you're on reserve, particularly that last day off before a reserve period, you'll probably, if you're on my budget, you'll want to spend a fair amount of time prepping food. So I always had 4 or 5 or more meals, either frozen or in the fridge, ready to go in my lunch bag. So if crew scheduling called me, I could have it ready to go. My rollerboard was packed with everything I could potentially need for a trip that took me anywhere across the country during that time of year. So when crew scheduling calls, the 3 things they're probably going to be calling you for. First, they may call you and say, hey, so-and-so, you've got a trip. Your show time is 10:55 p.m. It's a red-eye to Pittsburgh. And that trip might be a 3-day trip. It may be a 4-day trip. It might be a turn. They'll let you know. But you have to have your stuff ready to go in the event that it's any of those. They could also call you and say, hey, so-and-so, we're gonna have you sit ready reserve, or whatever your airline calls ready reserve, when you actually have to sit in the airport. With us, it's a 5-hour period. Some people have up to 12 hours where they have to sit ready reserve. But when you go to the airport to sit ready reserve, you may not be called at all. Chances are you won't be. but they could call you and say, hey, it looks like you've got 4 days left on reserve, so we're going to actually send you on a 4-day trip. You've got 15 minutes to get to the gate. Wow, so you better be ready. You got to be prepared. So your lunch bag, even if you're going to sit ready reserve where you may not be used, and there's a good chance you may not be used, you might be. And it could be anything from one turn. You might just be boarding the airplane for somebody else. But it could be a turn, 2, 3, 4 days. If your airline has 5-day trips, it could be a 5-day trip. So you want your lunch bag packed and ready for what could be up to a 4 or 5-day trip, right? And you want your rollerboard packed with everything you might need on a turn, a 2, 3, 4-day trip. So even though you might be coming back that afternoon or that morning, you still want to go to the airport with everything you could potentially need. When on reserve for me here in Las Vegas, I don't have a car. If I had a car, it would have been a little cooler because you could just throw all your stuff in the car and then drive where you want to go and go see Red Rock or wherever, as long as you could get back to the airport within 2 hours when they called you. So I didn't have a car. So what I would just do is at my crash pad and here I have a pool. We have 2. So if I were on reserve, I'm not, yay. If I were on reserve, starting probably this week, because it's starting to get warm here in Vegas, I could just spend the whole day by the pool with my phone fully charged. Because if they call and I don't answer, I have 15 minutes to get back in touch with them before I'm in trouble. If I'm on reserve and I'm on probation and I don't answer that phone and I don't talk to them in 15 minutes, that's a UTC. It's an unable to contact, and that's not good if you're on probation. So, I just have my phone ready to go, but I would be hanging out by the pool for the most part, snacking, drinking something cold, non-alcoholic, because if you're on reserve, you're technically have to be ready for work within 2 hours. So no alcohol, which is fine. I don't drink alcohol. I like to say you're welcome. When I tell someone that I don't drink alcohol, I like to say you're welcome, because that really is a gift to humanity that I don't drink. So reserve can be controlled chaos. You learn to understand the rhythm of how reserve can work. Once you get a good grasp on the software that your company uses, you can typically see the reserves that will be available for the day, the reserves that are necessary for the day as a buffer, which reserves have been used or who has how many hours and days available. So you might be able to gauge pretty well in terms of the odds of you actually being used for a trip that day or not. And if you know you're not, if there's 10 people before you who have, fewer hours than you do and they're junior, you're probably not going to be used, but you'll have an idea. So you're going to be on your days off, you're of reserve. I would recommend meal prepping, making sure you've got enough food that's healthy and snacks and easily packed and that can be eaten cold or kept cold until you're at your layover where you can heat it up. And have your bag packed with a little bit of everything so that you can be comfortable in any climate during that time of year. In the summer in the US, it's pretty easy. There's no area in our country that gets so chilly except for San Francisco. San Francisco, you want to bring a sweater even in July. But you want to have a bag packed for the season in where you may potentially fly. Flying US, just domestically, would be a little bit easier, I think. If you fly a lot of international trips, like if you go to Mexico a lot, flying to and from Mexico, you want to keep what you pack in your lunch bag. Keep in mind, fruits and vegetables are a no-no. Pork, a no-no. So that stuff's not getting back into the country. So you better want to eat it all on the way to Mexico and not when you're coming back into the US. So on reserve, you got to kind of have to be prepared for the stuff that could be thrown at you. It's really, it's frustrating. But then you get used to it, and it's not so bad. You can definitely live and have a nice life on reserve. But one day you'll get a line. Now, with me, when I first started flying, when I first graduated, I was lucky enough to meet this guy, Scott, who sat me down and showed me how he bids. Now, even while I was on reserve and there was no chance of me getting a line, he still encouraged me to bid for lines first. So we would bid in order of our desired elements of our schedule. So he suggested I always bid for lines. Bid for the lines I want first, and then bid for lines that I'll take. Then bid for any line, because I'll take anything. And then bid for the reserve notification period, for me that was B, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., that I wanted. And I didn't even put the other reserve notification periods that were available on my bid sheet. Oh, I have some heartburn. I didn't even put them on my bid sheet. I didn't want crew scheduling to even think I would accept another reserve notification period. I wanted B, only B. The only time you would get, so if I got B and my trip came in too late in the day for me to be legal the next day to be on reserve B, they would move me to the next reserve notification period, which was C. So the only time I got a different reserve other than B was because I came in too late in the day to be on B the next day. So they moved me to C, which was 2 p.m. to midnight, and I hated that. Oh, I hated that. Didn't happen often. So controlled chaos, you really never know what's going to happen, and you have to be prepared for all eventualities. With a line, very, very different. So let's look at, I'm not going to show you my laptop because, you know when you look at your laptop and you think, boy, that is dusty. I should really clean this laptop. Or there's spatters of all manner of things on here. And I just never clean. I never clean my laptop. I probably should, and I can't show it to you because it's gross. And I have I have my schedule up, but next to that is a list of my coworkers, particularly the people who are more senior to me, and I don't want you seeing their names, so that wouldn't be polite to them. But so I'll tell you, looking at my April schedule, I can see that I have Easter Sunday off, which is the 1st. I have the 2nd off. So I could technically, I'm sure somebody has a turn available that they wouldn't mind giving me if they wanted to get rid of it for Easter, but I'm going to take the day off. I have nothing to do. My family's all East Coast, but I'll take it off. So I have Sunday the 1st and Monday the 2nd off. The 3rd, which is a Tuesday, I have a 3-day trip scheduled. So it's nice to know. I have those 2 days off. I know that on Tuesday, the 3rd, I know that my trip starts, my check-in time. Gosh, where is my check-in time? Oh, my report time is 7:43 p.m. So I know the night before, I'm going to get to bed as late as I can and wake up as late as I can because my work day starts fairly late. But I also know that only leg, I have one leg that day, and I'm going to New Orleans. Actually, I'm lying to you. I'm looking at the wrong trip. So the 3rd, I'm going to, my check-in time is 5:30, so that's not too bad. And let's see, I have a 17.5-hour layover in Oakland. So I can, wake up late that day, stay up late the night before. Oakland, I know, has breakfast for us. We have a great breakfast there. And I know to pack my Hot Logic Mini because the only microwave in that hotel is in a different building. So I know to prepare that. The next day, we're going from Oakland to LA and then LA to Philadelphia. So I know I need to really get some sleep that night before. But I also know that I'm going to need, because I know my habits, I'm going to need a lot of snacks. I'm probably not going to want a lot of heavy food and a lot of big meals for that day, but I am going to want a lot of little nibbles. So I'm not eating muffins on the aircraft the whole time. So that's part of why it's great to know where I'm going. And then the next day, we're going from Philadelphia to Las Vegas. I'm going to have a 14-hour layover in Philadelphia. Nothing crazy, so I'm probably not going to pack a lot of clothes, but I do want to pack one good warm weather outfit because Philadelphia is having a lot of crazy weather right now, and I don't know if there's a delay or cancellation. I'm going to be stuck in Philadelphia, so I'm going to want some good, nice, warm clothes. So I know that I have the 1st and 2nd off. My trip is on the 3rd. My layovers are in Oakland and Philadelphia. I'm coming back to Las Vegas on the 5th. It looks like I get back on the 5th at 11 o'clock that night. But I don't have to be at work until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the 11th. So I'm off for all of those days between that trip. And I know this because I have my set schedule. So I've got those that big chunk of time off. I know now that I could hit the open time board and try to pick up a trip, or I could look into the trade board and find something, or I could make plans on going to visit friends or family. Now, early April in New England, still too cold for this one, so I'm not going up to Boston, but I might go back down to Atlanta for a few days to see the dogs and my friends. Or hey, I might fly down to Tampa, because I'll tell you, I have some good friends in Tampa. I might fly down to Tampa for a few days, because the weather in Tampa in April is lovely. So maybe that's what I'll do. But I know that I had that block of time off, and I could do that, knowing that, so if I were on reserve and I knew that I had those 5 days off, the next day, which is the 11th, I would only know that I have a reserve day. So I wouldn't know when I had to be back in Vegas. So if I did go to Tampa, I know that I would have to be back in Vegas at least by 10 o'clock that next morning, so I could at least have time to shower and change and get ready for my trip, because I know I have a trip on the 11th. On the 11th, I'm going to Seattle. I have a 12-hour layover in Seattle, which is nice. Then I've got a 21-hour layover in Fort Lauderdale. And so now I know I can get in touch with one of my favorite people in the world, and I think he might listen to my video here. One of my favorite people in the world, Keith. He is in Fort Lauderdale, and so we can maybe plan on getting together for lunch or something in Fort Lauderdale, or I'll just hang out by the pool. And then I know that on the 13th, I'm going from Fort Lauderdale to Las Vegas. So I've got this super, super easy 3-day trip that's got enough of a credit. It's a fair credit trip. But then I'm back off I get in to Las Vegas at 11 o'clock, common number, but I don't have to be at work again until the 20th, where I go to Baltimore, which I love. I have how long is that layover? It's a 24-hour layover in Baltimore. So I know to pack and prepare clothes for a day trip, because I'm going to spend that whole day in Washington, D.C. I also know that I have another layover there for 18 hours the next day. So if I don't see something I want to see in D.C. that first day, I can go the next day. And then we go from Baltimore to L.A. back to Vegas, which is kind of a longish trip, but it's something when you're based in Vegas, you fly to the East Coast all the time. So those trips are fairly easy. And it's more time I get to spend with our guests, right? So I won't tell you, I got one more fairly good trip after that. It's a 3-day trip with almost 18 and a half hours credit. So it's not that bad. So it's just, I get to look at my schedule, know when I'm going somewhere, for how long. If I, for example, go traveling for leisure to Tampa, down to Florida, I know when I have to be back. And it didn't have to be when my reserve notification period started. It could be just enough time for me to be ready for work the next day. Getting back here from Tampa, you know what? I might want to give myself an extra day, because getting back here from Tampa in the middle of early April might be a little busy, right? Blah, blah, blah. Does he ever stop talking? So having a schedule, I'm going to know exactly when and where I have to go be ready. I know what to bring with me, how to prepare. I know how long my layovers are going to be weeks in advance, so I can prepare for something fun to do in DC, for example. And I know that if I were on reserve, if I were on ready reserve, I would have 4 or 5 days of food in my bag. And then if it wasn't called, I'd have to come back, throw it all back in the fridge. Now I know what I have to prepare, and I can actually prepare menus for particular trips. For example, this trip to with Oakland and Philadelphia. Philadelphia, I know we have a crew room that has a microwave, and it's really easy to get to if there isn't already a microwave in our room. But Oakland does not have a microwave in my room, so I have to go to a different room. So I'll pack something that I know I can put in my Hot Logic Mini that will cook easily and quickly. So every aspect of my trip and my month and my life is going to be easier. Oh my gosh, having a life. With this schedule, say for example, those days, the 17th, 18th, 19th, that I'm going to have off, if I were to potentially, something weird on my computer screen. If I were potentially going to meet a nice guy and we want to make a plan for a lunch date or a dinner date, I know when and where I'm available. It's just fantastic. It's very strange. This very strange thing going on. I think there's a little tiny mite or something. I'm not sure how it got in there, but it's between the glass of my computer screen and the monitor. Isn't that weird? That's strange. Okay, so I think I've talked long enough. If there's any questions, or if I didn't touch on something and you want to know, because that's a pretty big topic, drop a comment below. You can find me on Facebook by going up to my About section, and it's going to have a link to my Facebook page that I put together for this. It's just a Facebook page called A Bear in the Air. Leave a message there. People message me on my personal Facebook page. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I'm gonna, because that's my personal page. But feel free to contact me on that through that link to Facebook to A Bear in the Air. And I'll talk to you later. Fly safe. Hope this video helped. Bye.